All right, it is 3 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get this process started. We have a fairly full agenda for today. If everybody could put their cell phones on vibrate or silent, please. Paula, would you like to do roll call?
Matt Guillory.
Here.
Jorge Charnico.
Here.
Dylan Bradway. Betsy Brunstetter. Donna Cervantes. Present. Tyler Holmes.
Here.
Lee Peoples.
Here.
Ben Sellers.
Here.
James Farnham.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. You all have minutes in your packet. I've had a chance to look at those. Can I get a motion? Any questions about the minutes, or can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Let's get into it. We don't have any cases withdrawn, no continuance requests, and no consent docket, but we have a fairly full individual docket. Michael, if you want to jump into the first one.
Yes, this item is for a remodeling and renovation of an existing structure, residential structure at 816 North Francis. And in addition, there is an addition to the house proposed on the north side of the structure. We've outlined our concerns for you regarding this project in our staff report. And primarily, I think that we've expressed some concern about the fact that with the change in the exterior look of this structure, it's almost akin to demolishing the house and starting over with a new structure. So we did want to make sure that the Commission was aware of that particular concern. However, that being said, there have been a number of demolitions of homes in this area that have resulted in new structures that are very similar in look to this contemporary style home that's proposed here, as well as a contemporary style addition. There is a letter that we received that should be on the dais for you from a neighbor to the north of this property. He's expressed concern in his letter with respect to the height of the structure and that it will also the positioning of the property of the structure close to the north property line. And his concern primarily is the loss of the view from his roof deck that would result from the potential of this addition to be built. So in conclusion, we're pretty much giving you the same staff recommendation that we would have given you if this was proposed as a demolition, which was if it's a significant structure to the city or not. That's a determination that the Commission would make, and based on that determination, the recommendation would be for either approval or denial. That completes our presentation. Prepared to respond to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michael. I think the staff report does a very nice job of kind of outlining the issue here, that the remodel is extensive enough to where it is pretty much a new house from all outward appearances, at least. So there seem to be two questions here. One would be the first of whether or not the demolition or dramatic changing of the structure is allowed, and then second would be a design review of what's proposed for the replacement. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this specific case?
Good afternoon. I'm Robert Smith.
Can you sign in, please?
Yes, I already did.
Okay, thank you. Okay, tell us where you live and what your relationship is to this property.
So I actually am the owner of the property itself, and I've kind of been in the market for a while in that specific area. I know from a little bit of research that it's not the historical preservation area, so that's kind of one of the main reasons why I chose that area. I want a modern, contemporary styled home, and I was able to find one that was a little bit older, had a little bit of a renovation inside, but the outside still had the cottage look to it. Therefore, I purchased the property, and that's the renovation that we're looking at right there.
Okay. Before I open it up to questions, this is a question I have, and it's for either of y'all. Michael, you may be the best to answer this. What's the square footage of this lot, and what percentage of the lot is going to be taken up by house by the time it's done?
I didn't do any calculations like that. There is no lot coverage maximum in this district.
Okay.
So
I did do a calculation. I did some research regarding the view ordinance, and I realized that potentially could be an issue. The actual calculation is 48%, but it's a zero lot line neighborhood, so I don't think you take that into consideration.
Okay. Any questions from the panel?
I did want to point out that when this project first came in, it was proposed to have an addition above the existing structure. And the applicant came to realize not long thereafter that the existing foundation under that existing structure was not capable of supporting a second-story addition. And as a consequence, there's no new addition on top of the existing structure, and all of what he was proposing to add has been concentrated to the north side of the site, on the north side of the house. So there was an attempt to make it a little less unbalanced. As you look at this this elevation here, you might see it, well, it is stair-stepping kind of up the hill along with Francis, because it does go uphill here, but it's a little bit out of character with the existing residents, so.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
think,
Oh, go ahead.
Michael and I had talked before, and he said, the style of the home looks a little bit unorthodox, per se, and that intrigued me with the area as a whole, with all the architectural design that we have in that area, every house being a little bit different, and showing the character of the neighborhood itself. So personally, the original design that we had, like Michael said, I wanted to go on top of the original house, but once we actually purchased the house and I was able to dig underneath the footings and realize that it's stone footings and rubble. So therefore, I had a structural engineer come out, do a calculation on it, and it will not be able to carry the load of an addition to the house. Now, the load calculation is already done from the structural engineer for the balcony itself, and that's why we chose to pursue the north instead of the south. The south was potentially an option. However, once you flatten the roof, you have a balcony that faces your neighbor to the north and not faces the actual downtown south. So that's kind of defeats the purpose of having a balcony and walking out just to see your neighbor.
All right, thank you. Betsy, did you have something?
This is a split lot, right? You don't own the property in front of you?
No, it is. The lot is split to 3,300 square feet, and I think the city did that. I'm not 100% sure when the city did that, but I'm assuming it's been a while, because the house to the north of me is fairly a year or two old, and then the house to the northwest of me is 101 years old, 116 years old, actually.
So what's the distance from the north side of your house to the house on the north side of you?
The distance is roughly, I think, 15 feet.
I have a couple of concerns about your project. The house that you're pretty much demolishing is one of the few houses left in the neighborhood that is actually intact and looks good. Your north elevation is scary to me. It's just a big blank wall. And even though you're close to the house in front of you, it's very much off-putting and cold-looking. So I'm just going to say that.
So since,
I can add to that later.
the reason why the wall is full stucco and no windows is because we're at the zero lot line. I'm 2 foot off the property lot line. Therefore, I can't, for fire code, I can't have a wall there with windows unless you do a fire retardant wall. But therefore, I can do that. That's not a problem to me. However, I'm not getting a view of anything but my neighbor's house. So in my opinion, spending the money for a fire retardant wall as well as spending the money for the glass for, low E thermal insulated glass, which is going to be surrounding the rest of the house, I think that money could be spent somewhere else.
Okay. But you could move that wall 3 feet and not have to have the fire retardant and, I mean, you said you're 2 feet off the zero lot line?
Correct.
So you could do 5 feet off the zero lot line and make it a little bit more attractive elevation.
If we can, before we get into the specifics of that wall or any other aspect of the design, the prerequisite, as it seems to me, to any part of this design is the major alteration of the existing house. So let's deal with that first. Betsy, you started addressing that. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, thoughts on that?
Well, I would share Betsy's concern about the historic nature of this house. The staff report goes into detail about the unique historical features of the house. It specifically calls out the recessed porch, the eyebrow dormer with integrated roof, the classical wood columns as important historical features. And if you go around the district, there really are not many remaining homes with these features at all. On my block, which is just a block south, we have 3 historical homes that are intact. Unfortunately, a lot of these around the district get deteriorated and they are torn down. On the block where this house is, there is the house on the north side that is older and historical. There are a couple of habitat houses, and then there's a multifamily that's historical, but you really don't have many other historical homes or homes with these historical features. If you head toward the park and cross Chartel, there's a very nice example at 8th and Chartel, a white stucco house that's historical and intact. And then across the park, there may be 1 or 2 others, but mostly habitat houses or dilapidated houses. So we really don't have much left, and people that live there like to have the mix of the modern and historical. So I do think this is significant to the district. I know that's the first step, and so I think, in my opinion, it is significant. And then if we agree to that, then we, of course, have to apply the guideline, which I think is very problematic with all the moving around and covering up and that sort of thing.
Anybody else? Yeah, as I read through the staff report, I had some pause or some conflict internally about how to move forward with this one. The staff report does a good job of pointing out the eyebrow dormers and the features of the historic aspects of the house, as you said, but also at the end of it, it does also do a good job of pointing out that at the same time, many similar residences with similar distinctive architectural styles and character defining features have been demolished. Like you're saying, there's not much of that left in the neighborhood at this point. We start getting back into character, which is something that we've wrestled with a good bit as a committee here, and what defines a neighborhood, what the character of a neighborhood is going to be. At some point, it seems to me that this neighborhood's character, there's a tipping point where we're no longer really calling it the Cottage District. Colloquially, it's Sosa now. What is that tipping point where the character of the neighborhood is now modern instead of historic? At what point does the historic house be the one that's standing out from the crowd instead of the modern one being the one standing out from the crowd? And I'm not asking that rhetorically. It's a legitimate question. I don't really know an answer for that. But anybody have more thoughts on the character issue with regard to the house as it stands?
We have some speakers.
What's that?
We have some speakers.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to? You can get back up in a second. Let me hear from some people in the audience.
Brian Fitzsimmons, and I have signed in 719 North Francis. I live on an adjacent block. I have a couple of handouts that may be relevant. Some of this has already been pointed out. I'd like to kind of go in a sequence here. A couple of maybe misunderstandings perhaps on the staff report. Previous history of this particular house was not just 2013, it was also UDC A 08022, so it was heard back in 2008. And at that time, it was when it was still joined and part of the same property of the other, and at that time, there was an attempt at a modern addition to it, and it was denied. And so the homeowner basically fixed up what is there. So that's something to realize. Staff report suggests that demolition is comparable to previous demolitions. There's two kind of factors. The previous demolitions that have happened in this neighborhood were all dilapidated houses. This is not a dilapidated house. It's a fully functional house. Also, since that time, we've had new demo ordinances that establish that the burden of proof for its historic character or not being historic is on the homeowner and various other things. I would suspect that perhaps some of those demolitions would not be approved today. It's just a fact. And then we go into comparing it to saying that this is proposed addition is similar in character to other modern. Yes, it is square. Yes, it has a flat roof. But much to what Betsy was alluding to, it's different in character in that, as proposed, it has an entirely blank wall. And as proposed, it also, we're talking about the zero lot line on the north, which the house is built within 4 inches per the proposal. So that has to be a blank firewall. But as drawn, it's also 2 feet from the east elevation. So those windows shown on the east elevation are not allowed per building code. That's kind of illustrated in a thing. So partly what you're voting on today will change immediately as soon as it goes to building permit. And so you're not looking at what's actually allowed in building code. So you would be voting in effect for 2 entirely blank walls. The guidelines, one of the guidelines, the 591150, which is on one of the handouts, it's the overriding purpose of our entire zoning code. It overrides everything. And the highlighted sections there is to promote public health, safety, comfort, and convenience. Okay. To prevent overcrowding of land with buildings. This is more than the 40% lot coverage, but we won't go into that. To provide adequate light, air, and public facilities, and to prevent undue encroachments. The property already encroaches on the north neighbor with the access. There will be encroachment when the house gets built. They'll, in essence, have to trespass unless the north neighbor allows them to set up scaffolding to build this house. That's an encroachment. And then most importantly, item F, to conserve the value of buildings and to encourage the most appropriate use. Conserve the value of buildings. This, in his own words, why would I want to look at the neighbor? It's devaluing his house. So by putting it on the north, he's devaluing his neighbor's house. All he's going to do is look at his neighbor. He could build the same addition, regardless of the historic character, on the south side. There's equal amount of room on the south side. It would probably be more cost effective because you won't have to do the firewalls. You could have all the windows you want. It could be the same thing, just on the other side. Those are items that I would like you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I did want to remark, our staff and the committee's job is not to evaluate building code. Very frequently, we review and approve things, and they have to come back for revision once they've gone through the building permit process. So I just I want to make sure everyone's aware of that there are checks and balances, and the purview of this committee is to decide if this meets the design guidelines and regulations, not the building code.
Thank you. Is there someone else that wants to speak? Come.
Hi, my name is Krista DeVette. I'm here to speak on behalf of the homeowner, David Chong. He's very sorry that he can't make it. Unfortunately, he's stuck in his surgery. He's operating still. He was hoping to catch at least the tail end of this. So David moved into this house 1 year ago, and the properties were both owned by the same person. And we really, the people that sold us the house also owned the current proposal. And it was our understanding that, that much of this house in the back of ours would be preserved. We actually even thought about purchasing this house, but unfortunately that option wasn't available to us at the time. So we would just like to say that we really appreciate all of your comments, as we are residing in the North House, and it is very, very intrusive. As we started thinking about this, the building, we didn't really understand all of the scaffolding that would need to be built, all of the construction that would have to go up our driveway and actually eliminate the use of our driveway, probably for 6 months up to a year. So we just really would hope that you could consider our perspective. And again, I apologize that David's not here, because he would be much more eloquent at describing how many ways this structure, this two-story structure and potentially a rooftop deck, would be very invasive to us, as we primarily bought this home for the view. And we had proposed several things to Robert here to potentially alleviate some of the losses that to our property value, such as building on the south side, which we think would be the best solution, or even potentially cutting out part so we could preserve some of our aesthetic view of the south side of our property. So that's all I have to say today. I just hope that you will consider that this is very, very intrusive to us, and we're really not looking forward to it, nor will we allow that Robert and to build on our property and to put scaffolding there. So we hope we can come to a good compromise. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, guys.
Perfect timing.
I'm David Chong. I don't know what's been said, to be honest, but you guys have seen the plans, and I think you saw my letter, and thanks to them for coming to talk for me. But I just want to present our case. I want to find some compromise we can find between both of us that we can both be happy. I don't want to just say you can't build. But certainly it blocks off the entirety of my view and makes it so I'm staring at a wall. I'd prefer not to, but, you know, I think there should be some way we can kind of find something that doesn't just encroach towards the property and build upwards. But as it stands right now, the plans, the way they look, is going to severely hurt my ability to sell the house later, I think, as well as just sort of the selling point of the house, which is the view. So anyway, hope you hear my plea. I'm sorry again for being late. So.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Mason?
Hi, my name is Steve Mason. I live 2 doors down at 824 Northwest 8th. I have 2 sets of comments, Chairman, one related to the demolition and the other related to the architecture. Do you want them both now or separately?
Let's just go ahead and deal with them both now, I think.
All right, thank you. As far as the demolition request, this is a great neighborhood, that it's a diverse neighborhood, particularly in architecture. And it's this house is one of the last examples of the cottage district, and it's a perfectly good house. It's being lived in. So there's no reason to demolish that house because you can't live in it, because the applicant inhabits it. So I see no justification for the demolition of a historically important house in the Cottage District that works perfectly fine. As far as the architecture, the applicant mentioned he doesn't want it on the north side because he doesn't want it on the south side because it would ruin his view. But by putting it on the north side, he's contradicting himself and doing the same thing to his neighbor. So I think from a neighborhood perspective, I would support it on the south side. The north side ruins the neighbor's view. Also, as Mr. Fitzsimmons pointed out, where it's located, the east windows are too close to the existing house, so they're going to have to go away according to fire. Because the north side of this house is within 2 feet of the property line, you can't build it because there's no scaffolding that's only 2 foot wide. So it's an impractical addition to do, to go up 3 stories. And then finally, just the house, this addition seems just doesn't feel right. I mean, you look at the elevation from the street, and it looks like it's going to tip over because you have it all so concentrated on the north side. And just the scale and the height just seems odd. And so those are my comments about the property. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to point out that there is no request before the commission today to demolish the house. The existing house is remaining, just the roof is being removed.
Right.
All right.
I do appreciate everybody's comments and also their concerns. What I did is I drove around the Sosa district and took pictures of all the different kinds of architectural designs that are in the neighborhood, as well as took pictures of properties that are obstructing views of some sort. And all of these have been approved by the committee, from my understanding. I also have inside there as well is an addition that was approved by the committee for the house to the northwest of me. And that house has a balcony that has a stucco wall that came off for privacy. Because of that, that took away the view of my neighbor to the north, partially. So once I have the structure that I have up, his view for the most part potentially will be gone. But at the same time, you all approved a structure for a stucco wall for that balcony just for privacy. That took away a partial view from my neighbor. So at the end of the day, there are different designs in our neighborhood. I wanted a contemporary home. This actual cottage district is not on the historical preservation list for neighborhoods.
Mr. Smith, what's the square footage of the addition that you're putting on?
The addition square foot would be roughly 1,200 square feet. So we're looking at about 2,300 square feet.
Okay. I believe there's something making its way around the panel right now. While that's making its way around, are there any other questions? Anyone else from the audience want to speak?
I guess the only thing I have in closing, when I went through the handout for DBD DT-1 and DT-2, I went through and reviewed what the height requirement is in the area. And the height requirement is 3 stories, no more than 50 feet. I am bidding a 2-story square foot house with a rooftop, and the structure totally will be about 23 square feet tall. And that is in the handbook here that I had the only opportunity to kind of read through because I can't, verbally talk to you all before I actually do the design. This is the design that I love. This is my personal house. So I understand that other people might have different opinions, just like I might have different opinions with the other houses within the neighborhood. But they're all unique in their own way, and they're all catered to the actual homeowner or architectural designer that built it or designed it. And lastly, as I did research within the state of Oklahoma, we do not have a view ordinance within the Sosa or Cottage District. Thank you.
Lee, you talked a little bit about, I know you're kind of very involved in this neighborhood, and you talked a little bit about the changes to the proposed house. Do you have thoughts on the changes that are proposed? Or
Well, the way I read the staff report and from Michael's comments, I think we have really two things before us, two steps to go through. And the first is to determine if the house is significant to the district. And in my opinion, it is. There have been other comments from the commission to that effect. There have been other neighbors here who agree that this is a significant house to the district. The way I read the staff report, if we make that determination, the next thing to do is to apply the guideline. And when I look at the guideline in the staff report, it is very much on point with the addition that is proposed today. The guideline says that character-defining elements such as building mass, roofs, and exterior walls should be retained, refurbished, and remain in their original location. And the proposal before us today is asking to make changes to all three of those things, to the building mass, to the roof, and to the exterior wall, and to radically change this house. And I don't see how we can approve that and comply with the guideline. The staff report goes into some detail on this. It says the removal of the roof and the resurfacing of the structure with modern materials would destroy the home's character-defining feature and gut the architectural integrity of the house. Staff report also says what is proposed would have no resemblance to period architecture, and the outcome would be the same as demolishing the house, and I would agree with that. So my position is the house is significant to the district, and if we apply the guideline says we're not supposed to be changing the mass, the roof, and the exterior walls of significant structures, and that's what we're being asked to do, and I don't see how we can do it with the proposal before us.
Thank you. I believe that what you're saying is absolutely accurate in terms of a chicken and the egg sort of thing here. If we do decide that this is a historic resource that needs to be preserved, at least in its major features, and I know Michael pointed out there's not a demolition, a full demolition here, but the proposed changes are almost a demolition in terms of changing the structure to such an extent that it is no longer recognizable in any way. So let's deal with that first issue before we move on, because if that is going to be the case, then whether or not the addition goes on the north or the south and the firewalls and all of that winds up being moot, potentially. Are there any motions or any more specific questions or comments specifically related to the changes to the existing structure that's there? Anyone? Donna?
I just want to follow up what Lee's comments. I think if we agree that this structure is significant to the district, granted it's not a historic preservation district, but the guidelines are clear, and I think if we follow those in terms of recognizing it's significant, then I would make a motion based on staff recommendation E1.
It would be,
Excuse me.
two. E2.
significant to the district, therefore deny the application on the basis that the project does not meet the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District, as referenced in Section D of the staff report.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Holmes. Okay. The motion carries, and the application is denied based on the preservation, well, the retaining of the historic character of the historic resource of the house that is there. Mr. Smith, thank you.
Mr. Smith, you can follow up with Michael this week about if there's other changes you want to consider.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa.
All right. Our next case is one that we saw last month, and it was continued. Michael, do you want to catch us up to speed on this one?
Yes, this item was continued from our last meeting on July 27th, 2016. The Jimmy John's proposed at the southwest corner of Northwest 23rd and Barnes Avenue. You may recall at the meeting last month, there was quite a bit of conversation, discussion, and concern with respect to the orientation of the building on the site plan. It had proposed that basically the two side walls that face Northwest 23rd and Barnes Avenue were essentially blank walls. The back of the building facing Barnes and the north face of the building facing Northwest 23rd. Now, they did attempt in that proposal to incorporate more windows. There's a drive-through window in the project on that north elevation. And then in addition, there's a functional window towards the west side of the building. And they had attempted to incorporate more glass fenestration on that elevation by adding 3 non-functional opaque windows that were adjacent to the kitchen areas, and they were unable to put real windows in that part of the building. As a result, the applicant did consent to a continuance at that meeting to consider some reorientation of the building. They have come back to the commission with this version of the project. It is not, looking at the site plan here, it is not a 180-degree rotation of the building, but rather a flip of the building on the north-south axis. So that what was once the west side of the building has been flipped over to become the east side of the building, and the patio, the outdoor dining area, has moved with that side of the building, so it also faces the corner of Barnes and Northwest 23rd. And the reason it was done that way is to maintain the drive-through window on the north side, which is the only way to keep the functioning drive-through window or operation going in the building. So, and then along the same lines that I discussed earlier, the north face does still include this one functional window, which is now on the east end of the building, closest to the intersection of the two streets. And then these two windows and the one back here on towards the west side, those are all on the wall that is the kitchen area, and those are opaque windows that you cannot see through into the interior of the building. And of course, you have the drive-through window on the north face, facing Northwest 23rd. So they've done, I think, some of the things that were considered or suggested by the commission at the meeting last month. They haven't done some of the things that would be more radical changes and more significant changes to the overall site plan. While we feel that there could be some improvements still made to the design that they've come up with, we've provided a recommendation of approval to the Commission for your consideration. Prepared to respond to any questions the Commission may have.
Is there an applicant here?
Yes. Thank you, Michael. Welcome back.
Glad to be back.
And thank you for working through with Michael to get this resubmitted so quickly. Before we start asking questions, do you have anything that you want to add to the summary that Michael just gave?
I mean, like you said before, we tried to do as much as we could. We did look into trying to get some of those windows that were opaque open to the exterior interior, but unfortunately, with the design of like how our stuff is laid out inside, it wasn't possible.
Okay.
Our corporation couldn't find a way to make that actually happen. So this was really our only possibility to make it.
I know you were fighting against some time constraints because of submission, and as Michael said, there are some changes made, but not some larger changes. Was that because of time constraints, or were those considered and really not?
As far as like the site's concerned, this is really the best possible way to lay it out as far as accessibility for cars going in and out, not getting like a log jam inside of the parking lot, and also trying to get as much glass to pedestrian visibility. So really this was the only way I felt like we could do it and try to get as close to the recommendations made on the last meeting. So.
Okay.
We had hoped for a reorientation of the building on the site of a 90-degree turn so that the building was running north-south,
right,
similar to the way the fast food buildings are laid out on the north side of the street. But with the size of the site, it would have sacrificed a substantial amount of the proposed parking and would have hindered, I think, the on-site circulation in and out of the project site.
So from a practical point of view, is it opinion that 90-degree rotation is not really practical?
Given the amount of property they bought, yes.
Can I
yes,
say
please.
something? I actually think this is worse.
Oh, really?
Because we don't get any more windows, and you've placed the outdoor dining where it can't be seen because the cars will be in front of it, queuing up.
I mean, if there's a car there, it possibly could be obscuring that area, but that's...
And a car sitting there is expelling exhaust, and so anyone sitting out there is going to be subject to breathing the exhaust. I actually made the comment in the last meeting that the umbrellas that could be seen from the street on the other end of the building were a positive thing. And even though Blackwelder or Barnes is a street, it's a residential street that doesn't get nearly as much traffic as 23rd Street. And I just wanted to make those comments because I do think that the layout is worse than it was last time.
So, and thank you, Betsy, and I have a tendency to agree with what you're saying. Looking at a net gain and loss compared to last design versus this design, obviously a major change is moving that exterior seating area from the west side to the east side. What other major significant changes?
You now have the east elevation with a full wall of glass, which is the east elevation shown here at the top sheet, whereas before you would have been looking at this west elevation, which is a blank wall.
Okay. And fronting on 23rd Street, there are no major
Well, it's basically the same elevation as you saw last week, it's just flipped. It's just reversed. So everything, these 3 windows on the left would have been on the right, and
Do we have any images of the last month's?
Of the what?
I
Do we have
I
last?
don't have any, I don't have any of that.
So on the first submission, though, wasn't it painted and were there the same amount of windows on the north side?
It was the exact same.
Exact same. Okay.
Ben, use your
It's just
microphone.
flip-flopped. It's mirrored on its north to south axis. And the reason we did that is because that was the secondary recommendation as far as like trying to get pedestrian visibility for the building, because it would have been facing the corner. That's why we made that change, to try to appease that.
There are a number of parking spots required by the corporation?
Well, for the lot you're required to have, I think it's 16, and we have 17 for that size of a building. So we're right at the dot on that.
So when you attempted to put the building somehow oriented where it was off of, I guess it had like an urban aspect to it, was it actually, how many parking spots did you have in that?
What was the question?
So say when the building was oriented with the drive-through on basically the southern side of it?
No,
It was never on the southern side of
the
it.
drive-through's always been on
It's
the
always
north
been
side.
West.
Okay. Is there a reason why the drive-through's never been put on the south side?
There isn't enough stacking space for a car to drive through there. You have to have 120 feet, I believe, of stacking space for. So if you put it on the south side, obviously you're going to be backing out into the parking lot and out into 23rd Street. So that's why it has to be on the north side to have enough stacking space for the cars.
Okay.
So last month, we spent considerable amount of time talking about reorienting the building either at a 90-degree or a full, some other orientation on the lot, moving it back. We talked about several different options. It does not seem like those are going to be practical options that are available. So the questions at this point, or comments, should be geared towards what is being currently proposed versus what was proposed last month, because it does not seem like a major reorientation of the building is going to be an option.
With this amount of land, we have played around with a north-south orientation of the same size building. We expect that they would lose, I think they have 17 parking stalls now. They probably would end up with close to 11 or 12 with that reorientation of the building. And additionally, with the length running north-south, it would impinge access on the south side of the site and probably result in just enough room for a drive-through lane and a one-way exit lane out to Barnes with no two-way traffic on Barnes.
Okay.
They would be below probably the required amount of parking if they went down to 12 or 11 stalls. And therefore, they would have to get a variance for that as well, in addition to the setback variance that they already need to have for this version or the version you saw last time. And even with a rotation of the building 90 degrees in a north-south orientation, they would still need the variance for the 10-foot setback because they have to have room for the drive-through around the building.
Okay. Questions? Comments?
I personally have a comment. This is kind of a strong opinion, but I kind of believe that this isn't in the best interest of the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, order, and general welfare of what is to come on 23rd Street. And I'm under the impression that I believe that this may just not be a good fit for 23rd Street, despite what is already there, and there's a lot of chains. I personally think that we could do better. That's my opinion. I think that I would really prefer if this building could front and have more of a walkable aspect to it, because I think that's where 23rd Street wants to go. So I would really enjoy if the drive-through was on the southern side and that it could be a walk-up, similar to how, I don't know if everyone's familiar, but kind of how the McDonald's is in Bricktown, where they front the street and there's some stairs in front where you can walk up to it or even access that way. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Betsy, you have something?
I understand that you're kind of in a pinch, but it appears that you're trying to fit a standard design into a different site.
No, it's not a standard design. It's they base the design of the interior based upon the size of the building. So to put a drive-through in there, this is really the only way to orientate like the interior. It's just because you have to have your kitchen on one side and you have your
Right. But you could rearrange your kitchen. Yeah, I mean, all I asked for last time was more windows, and I didn't get it.
Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that because that would have been easier if we could do that. But there's no way to like move anything or eliminate any of the kitchen stuff we have in there because it's super tight. Like that would have been the easiest way to do it, but unfortunately we couldn't do it.
Unless you made the building a little bit wider.
Making it wider wouldn't actually increase like the distance for the east to the west on the interior. So it would still have that same distance east to west. So the drive-through window would be right where it is. It would just make more room for like interior diners to sit. Is really
Well,
what it
you
would
could
do.
potentially, and I don't believe in designing on the horseshoe, but you could potentially, if you made it a little bit wider, you could potentially get that serving line perpendicular instead of at an angle, and then provide more windows in the space, because that second window would not be part of the serving line anymore.
I'm not sure how much room we actually even have to make that even wider as it is set up. I think we maximized the width, like for 2 lanes to drive through there, and then to have a drive-through lane. So I don't even know if that would be possible, honestly. And the only reason we moved everything around is so that we could have it more pedestrian friendly. So we went on the recommendations of the second option from the Urban Design Committee on the last meeting.
Yeah, and that pedestrian friendliness or orientation to the street is what we keep wrestling with, and that's what we wrestled with all of last discussion also. I mean, the orientation to the street is completely car-centric here, and the pedestrian orientation is totally facing away from the street towards the parking lot. And I understand that there are size constraints of this piece of property, but I keep hearing the same things from everybody on the committee here, and even Tyler, who was not here last month, kind of came to the same conclusion there.
Why would it be a recommendation to flip the building around as something that would be acceptable on the last meeting? That was one of the recommendations from.
Well, I mean,
so it was.
Flipping the building around, I think, was more in terms of orienting the pedestrian aspect of the building, which is now facing south towards the street, towards 23rd Street. What we've really done from a pedestrian point of view is put the exterior seating in a less attractive spot for the people actually using it.
Well, we also have more glazing on the east-facing wall, and that's why they wanted us to switch it around so that it was glazed.
I mean, if we're going to be realistic about it, most of that's going to be blocked by the cars in the drive-through lane and the the big board, the ordering board and menu board and things like that. I mean, it's still not very engaging from a pedestrian point of view. Thoughts, comments, or a motion?
I want to echo Betsy's comments that this, for the reasons pointed out, feels, I like last month's version better if this is the only one that came back after the comments from last month. I think putting the seating out by the drive-through was the concern you had last month, that you didn't think that was a good spot, and I agree. Putting the seating where the drive-through board is.
That was our reasoning, but
Right.
it was recommended by the Urban Design Committee to face the glazing that way.
So
Yeah, I don't think it's accomplished what the committee has had in mind. And my question is, this is the only one on the table now. We can't vote on last month's submission.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could be able
We
to.
could?
Yeah, I mean, you were just modifying what you've seen here. I mean, if you already have those in your packet and stuff. I mean, I think.
We did not provide them in the packet, but I think everybody has a clear memory of.
And Michael might have them on file. Yeah, I mean, if last month's are on the table, we can consider either. We still have the issues that we had last month with last month's. I do agree with Betsy that I like that better than this, but George?
just individual comments from people on the commission doesn't constitute a recommendation from the commission. So personally, flipping it would not have done anything for me. So I just want to kind of clarify that as we speak, we're speaking for ourselves until we vote. So,
well, we based it upon the recommendation that was in the packet as far as like from them.
Okay, I can't speak to that.
That's why there was two orientations, to flip it 90 degrees or try to get more glazing towards like the pedestrian like sidewalks. So that's kind of why we went that way. Like, I understand what you're saying though.
So to me, I feel like I'm putting, and I understand there's a Canes and some other things that have done things differently in the past, but I don't feel that I can, for the sake of a drive-through, forego the 10 feet requirement. So I'd like to put forward a motion to deny based on that 10-foot setback.
Do I have a second?
Well, I'm not going to second that. I would be for denying, but I think there's more reason
All right,
to deny it.
We have a motion on the table. Let's see if there is going to be a second. And then if not, you can make a different motion. Any second?
Second.
Do you want to state your motion for Paula's benefit?
See if I can remember. A motion to deny the application based on the 10-foot setback referenced in the staff report along 23rd Street.
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
Can we have a discussion, please?
Yes.
Yeah, I would just say from staff's perspective, we would like as much, any other reasons any of the other committee members feel need to be included in this motion, that would be helpful.
It just needs to be a stronger motion.
Okay, so what?
Have at it.
Well, one of the reasons why this is, this doesn't really comply with the ordinance is because the ordinance has a, I can't quote the section, but it has a requirement to interact with, promote street interaction. and this most definitely does not. It places cars between pedestrians on the street in every case, and does not, and it also does not open to the street, creating that pedestrian interaction with it. It could be said better, guys.
Are you okay with restating or having Betsy restate your?
Oh, I think George can do a much better job than I can.
Okay, I'm going to try this again. It's a proposal to deny based on the fact that a minimum of the 80% of the front facade of the building is not within the 10 feet right-of-way. Is that specific enough?
Well, and to include Betsy's point, I would say because, and also due to the lack of street interaction between the building and pedestrians.
I guess my concern is I'm looking at this urban design guidelines regulation section, and I don't see that as in there.
We can look it up. We can look it up in the ordinance.
Okay, because if I have something to speak to, but just going off of this.
Yeah, let us look it up real quick.
Because if I look at the memo, it says that is in fact in compliance, promote pedestrian comfort, interest, and security. So item C says items in compliance.
I know what you're saying. We did not cover it in the staff report. The committee is saying they don't believe that guideline is met. So give us a couple of minutes to look it up in the ordinance, and we'll show you where that is.
That's why I keep
it. In the staff report for the July meeting, we cited a concern about this very issue, and it reads, the guideline reads as follows: vitality of the streetscape. It's section 13700.6E. New construction, reconstruction, and building expansion should be designed to promote greater vitality of the streetscape. And that's what we raised as an issue in the report last month. And that's what prompted a lot of the conversation that happened at the meeting last month. The applicant thought, based on the comments that you provided at the meeting, that doing what he's provided you today would be sufficient to address that concern.
Except for we did ask specifically for more clear glass on the street.
But the motion can be whatever we make it, regardless of what was stated last week or last month.
Yeah, last week you took no action. So.
You want to take another shot?
Other than to continue.
Sure. All right, take 3.
Motion to deny based on the fact that the building is not within the 10 feet right-of-way, and it also does not promote pedestrian comfort, interest, and security along pedestrian-oriented streets.
Second that motion. Okay. We have a clearly stated motion. Do we have a second? Oh, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I opposed.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Michael, these next ones are all pretty well linked together, it seems. We look at them individually, I know, but we're going down a path here.
This first item, which is UDCA 1500028 at 1708 North Indiana Avenue, is a request to the Commission to allow the mural program that was approved a year ago for a period of 1 year to be allowed to be continued for an additional period of 3 years. With this particular aspect of the project, it's still confined to the address 1708 North Indiana. There are some minor changes to the program with respect to the curatorial membership, so on and so forth, and we've defined those for you in the staff report. In addition, you received a memo by email last Friday and a hard copy on your dais today that describes the action that the Arts Commission took on this request at their meeting last Monday on the 15th of August. And in that memo are contained the 4 conditions of approval, I believe, that the Arts Commission suggested should be included in any approval for this project to extend for 3 years. And that completes our presentation.
Thank you. A year has gone by quickly. Does anyone want to speak to this?
Yes. Hello, Chris Canale, 523 Northwest 31st Street.
Can you sign in also, please?
Yes.
Okay.
And Dylan Bradway, 1735 Northwest 13.
Thank you.
We have a 1-year project review. We had a digital presentation, but I guess what you have here is the copy of that. Do you want us to run through the report? We would love to do that. No?
Give us the highlights, please.
Okay. So as you know, we're a rotating mural project, approximately 5,200 square feet. We've been operating for about 11 months now. We had a 1-year permit. It expires September 26th. We've had a great response to the project, lots of media support, lots of community support. We've actually been able to establish a nonprofit out of this project to help fund more artists and gather sponsorship and grants for mural process and mural applications. We are asking for an extension on the project to 3 years. 3 years allows us to go after more kind of sponsorship and for people to actually kind of have confidence that we're going to stick around. With only a 1-year permit, it's hard to get people to have confidence that we're going to be around next year. So part of our project goals are to provide an outdoor exhibition space for artists to paint murals. We want to increase public art in OKC, and we want to establish the first mural district in Oklahoma City, and also in the state, which is really exciting. As we talked about, the 501c3 is the Oklahoma Mural Syndicate. Right now it consists of 3 people, myself, Dylan Bradway, and Brandy Morrow. Our mission is to advocate and curate public art projects that benefit the community and inspire creativity. Previously, the permit was under our curation. Nothing really changes. We just establish it as the nonprofit, as the curatorial board now, which still consists of myself and Dylan Bradway.
And then we added Brandy as more of like a secretary position, not a curatorial position. So.
We have lots of future plans. Before our permit runs out, we're going to have a mural expo that coincides with the Plaza District Festival. We have 20 artists scheduled. Artist stipends are sponsored by the Plaza District Association. We will be repainting the entire surface. We have lots of media buzz about this. We actually just won Best of OKC from the Gazette for Best Public Art Project or Best Public Art in Oklahoma City. We've had the mayor come through and tweet about us. his chief of staff has stated that it's his favorite public art project in Oklahoma City right now, which we're really proud of. At the end of our permit, we will have painted approximately 70 murals. We've definitely exhibited an ability to curate the murals, to pick the artists, and of course nothing offensive has ever been painted. We've had zero negative feedback on the project. It's all been overwhelmingly positive. We've even had the mural, the Odyssey Leadership Academy, come out and paint a mural, which basically had grade school, high school kids come out. Part of their art class was to paint a mural. That was a really great opportunity. And those type of opportunities are why kind of the project exists.
And with the Odyssey Leadership Academy, we just met last week and plan to extend some sort of involvement with them throughout the project, even demos and different type of learning opportunities there. So.
Part of our requirements was to gather VERA waivers by each artist. We've been very diligent about that. We have hard copies of all of the waivers that have been signed. So we've transformed a scary alley into a gallery. The alley now has 4 storefronts, which is really interesting and unique for the city. It's a very unique experience for the people that walk through the area. It's unlike any other in the state, really. We have a public-facing wall, which is the Indiana Wall, faces west on Indiana Avenue. It's approximately 60 feet long, 900 square feet. We've debuted a new mural there every 30 days since February. We will have debuted 8 murals by the end of September. And we've raised our goal was to raise $1,000 per mural for the Indiana Wall, since it is so big. And we've reached 91% of that goal. We give recognition to our sponsors, but we maintain compliance with the allowed sponsorship identification area stated in the mural codes. It's become one of Plaza District's top tourist attractions. It's a haven for photography. We have a community event space now, which is a kind of a courtyard that is in the alleyway that, since we've painted it, now there's storefronts inside or in the area of the courtyard. There's picnic tables. It's a great area for the community and public to just relax and take selfies and photos. Every time we go by there, there's a new group of people taking photos. It's had a profound positive impact on the district. And our future plans, of course, to get a 3-year extension. We have expansion to some new sites. So the same rules would apply to these new locations. They are very close to the vicinity of the current building. That allows us to slow down the murals and allow some of the murals to last longer. So we can debut a mural here and then debut another mural on the other building. And also this would lead us to establishing the first mural district in the state. And we would like to, we have all types of ideas, which would entail an annual mural festival where all the walls would get painted within the same week. We have a recommendation from the Plaza District Association. That's the front page of the handout there. And I just wanted to point out a couple things. It says that OMS, or the Oklahoma Mural Syndicate, has proven themselves to follow the guidelines requested by the city and the property owner, Steve Mason, as well as have shown superior artistic ability and curation through multiple forms. It backs up the district's mission, which is to promote and foster local art and artists. It's increased enthusiasm for the area. They've seen a decrease in crime and graffiti. And overall, it will help, the expansion of the project will help activate and add enthusiasm and to new parts of the district with more frequency.
I wanted to say I've been there. It's great. If anyone has not been to see the murals, please go. I did. I went at night, and it was like first a little bit scary, and then it was like, oh, wow, this is so cool. Anyway, I would like to move approval of the application on the basis that the project meets the regulations and guidelines of the Urban Design Overlay District.
Michael, we need to add in the conditions from the arts. That applies to the mural project too, or the individual?
Yes.
Okay.
We did not have this at the time we read the staff report.
Ordinance, it complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Urban Design Overlay District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C of the staff report, and with the conditions that the Arts Commission suggested. If the curator status occurs, if a change in curator status occurs, the applicant shall notify the Arts Commission. The applicant shall present project reviews to the Arts Commission every 6 months. We don't have to see that, though, right? Good.
No, it's all goes back to Arts Commission.
The applicant shall submit and present a final project report to the Arts Commission at the end of a 3-year period. The applicant shall update the curatorial plan to include the Arts Commission's murals policy. The applicant shall incorporate the Arts Commission's public art marker standards. Okay, that was in there. Do I have a second?
All right, we have a very long motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Do we have to have that motion on every single one of them, or can we just duplicate that motion?
So there's no point in sitting down quite yet. So that was 1708. Let's look at 1715. Michael, do you have anything to introduce us to with regard to this one?
This is an existing building at the northeast corner of North Gatewood and Northwest 16th Street. It's the Saints Pub. Already has a mural painted on the west side where the proposal for the expansion of the mural program would occur on this building at the same time. And again, the Arts Commission did review this proposal at their meeting last Monday, and the same set of conditions of approval were recommended for inclusion in this project. So this would be an expansion of the, not time-wise, but physically an expansion of the mural program that you just approved for 3 more years.
Okay. This one in particular is the back part of Saints Pub, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Faces west.
Anything specific to this one that we need to know?
We painted the mural over 5 years ago, the current one. I was part of that project, and actually the property owner and business owner have been requesting a redo of something in that area for quite a while, and when they heard about our ideas for expansion, they really were excited about the potential of a rotating mural on that spot. So it just brings a little bit more attention to the district and their building.
So this is a current mural that's being brought into the program, is that right?
This would actually get painted over. So the spot would be
the wall
added
will be
to
part of it. Okay.
Yeah, the project itself.
Comments, questions?
Move
Motion?
approval. Move approval duplicating the last motion. Oh.
Mr. Mason?
Hi, my name is Steve Mason again. I live at 824 Northwest 8. I'm in support of all these projects. The first one that you saw a moment ago is my property. And I want to thank you all because the city code wasn't really set up for this project. And the city code, if we didn't have a 1-year permit with these guys curating, we would have already been back to see you 40 times for all the murals. So I wanted to thank you guys for the trust you put in us a year ago to go forward and kind of curate it with your all support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Betsy has a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes on 1715. 1717?
Yes, this application is directly across the street from Saints Pub at the northwest corner of North Gatewood, Northwest 16th Street. It's a dance studio right now that formerly was a gas station, still has the canopy out front. This proposal involves the two, I guess, the south wall and the east wall, so the wall facing 16th and the wall facing Gatewood. And again, the same conditions from the Arts Commission would apply to this project as well.
Move for approval based on staff recommendation.
I have a second?
Right, and with the conditions.
Yes.
And with the
recommended by our-
conditions outlined in item 6.
It was on a separate handout.
Yeah, it's on a separate. The conditions previously stated by Betsy, which are listed on August 19th
Yes,
memo.
according to the conditions listed on the memo dated August 19th.
Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, 1717 passes. Let's move on to the last one, 1609 North Blackwelder, and 1634 North Blackwelder, and 1804 Northwest 16th.
Yes, the reason these projects were all broken up is because they're all different property owners, and we had to have property owners sign each application, so that's just a precursor. So this site is at the east end of the Plaza District, adjacent to the Mule Restaurant. So you have the south side of 1634 Blackwelder, and then the east side of 1624 North Blackwelder, and then in addition to that, this existing wooden fence that exists at the eastern property line of the project, and I think that also happens to be the eastern boundary of the district. So that's these three sites at these two addresses, and then additionally you have two walls proposed for murals at 1609 North Blackwelder. The one on the upper right is the north wall, and that is a correct representation of the wall to be painted. The picture at the lower right is by my error not the correct wall. The correct wall is actually a little further back, and it's on the south side of the metal building that sits behind this yellow building and adjacent to the green residential structure next door. And then the site on the left is the vacant site, currently a vacant site, where a building was proposed and approved by the commission within the last year. So, and at the time that project was being discussed and considered, the potential for a mural being painted on the east wall, the west wall, was discussed at that point. And so this is kind of falling right in line with those discussions when that project was approved. And here's some pictures of some of the surrounding areas that are surrounding these three different sites under the same ownership. And again, we are recommending the commission adopt the 5 conditions from the Arts Commission that were recommended by them at their meeting last Monday.
I have a quick question about this grouping. 2 of these locations aren't necessarily on the main drag of the Plaza District on 16th. They seem to front, not necessarily front on 15th, but orient towards 15th. Are they both in what's either currently or going to be a parking lot?
If you're talking about 1624 and 1634, they're basically alley conditions similar to the existing program at 1708 North Indiana. There is traffic flow around the back of these buildings from Blackwelder behind the building at 1624 and then up the east side of 1634 North Blackwelder. So it's not a lot different than the existing program at 1708. There is one residential structure south of this that I believe is remaining, and another one that was been approved for demolition for a parking lot. Okay. So I'm not sure that the murals on the back sides of these 2 buildings on North Blackwelder would be visible from the parking lot, because there may be a remaining residential building there that would block it. Actually, does it?
There's also some tree cover.
Yeah, there's also some trees and such there. I'm not sure So
is the goal to get pedestrian traffic into those?
Yeah, I mean, ideally I believe there's an expansion of parking all along Blackwelder there, the angled parking that Jeff proposed, as well as an expansion of the parking lot there. So there will start to be kind of an influx of foot traffic that goes up through the backside of Goro rather than all off of 16th Street.
And in this location, 15th is not immediately adjacent. It's actually a little further down in this location here. So there's this area right here is the area that's been discussed for a proposed parking lot, surface parking lot. That
okay.
So and then with respect to the building at 1609, you have a wall that would basically face Northwest 15th in this area behind the green house that's on the corner. And then to see the wall, the mural on the north side of this building, you have to go into this kind of interior motor court that surrounds this group of buildings. And you may remember just a month or so ago, you approved a renovation expansion of a building that sits just immediately north of where this mural would go at 1704 Northwest 16th Street. So you're going to have a lot more people, if they're visiting that restaurant, they'll be able to view that mural. So.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Or other questions?
I just had a question about, is a fence included?
The fence, we wanted to include it in the application in case our programming kind of allowed a similar aspect to the alleyway of improving that space with art. And that was requested by the building owner, actually. He really kind of wanted that fence to have a little bit better look than what it does now.
It's a wooden fence?
Yeah.
But you're not sure if that's going to fall within the mural program?
Ideally, like our programming, we're trying to get the approval for the expansion, and then we'll work on the programming for what goes where. We don't plan to have like a high-profile mural go on the fence and give them $1,000 for it. We would rather that be kind of the, if you want to come paint, we'll approve it, and it changes periodically, but it's not maybe the high-profile piece like you'd see on the side of Saints that we would make a big rotation and public push for.
Yeah, I have a little more concern there because it seems like it would weather. If it's not kept up, it would deteriorate faster.
If it's getting, I mean, if we're utilizing the spray paint especially and not doing any removal of paint and just painting over the spray paint, then it's going to actually probably, preserve it and create like a weather barrier, at least on that side of the fence.
Does a fence fall within the Art Commission's murals policies, or?
The fence is considered exterior structure, so they do consider it as part of the mural process. So, same with buildings, like anything that contains a building or is actually part of the building.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Move approval with the same verbiage as the previous motions.
All right, I have a motion for approval with the same 5 conditions that were included in the last one. So I have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. That one passes.
Thank you very much.
And Michael, let's move on to other business. We have a SPUD on Classen in the Asian District.
Yes, this application is for a proposed SPUD on the east side of Classen between Northwest 26th and Northwest 27th. It's currently the site of the
Golden Phoenix.
The market and the Golden Phoenix. The applicant has prepared a SPUD that would allow for a new set of buildings to take the place of a number of existing buildings on the site. One of those being the old camera store, which is at the northeast corner of Northwest 26th and Classen. Unfortunately, I've labeled 26th as 27th on this graphic. But anyway, a lot of these buildings you see on the south side of the block would be demolished to make way for a new parking lot that would front on Northwest 27th and then buildings around the side. You've got some plans in the packet. For illustrative purposes, they're not being considered at this time as part of the SPUD request. I do want to point out that the applicant contacted me last week and indicated that they're proposing to change some of the buildings, or I guess the buildings on the south side, to incorporate a fourth floor, and therefore there's a line in the SPUD that would need to be changed, and that is on page 2 of the SPUD, item 3, where it talks about maximum building size, and currently the limit is 3 stories in the drafted SPUD that you've been provided, and they would be changing that as they go forward to Planning Commission to be a 4-story limit. The 60-foot height limit under item 2 would remain the same. There's no change to that at all. So we've prepared an analyzation for the Commission to consider in respect with this SPUD, and we've recommended approval to the Commission. Prepared to respond to any questions the Commission may have.
And just to clarify, Michael, the recommendation of the SPUD, that will also be, everything will be included in that, including the demolition of the current buildings and...
No, the SPUD doesn't include approval for any demolition or any new construction. The SPUD sets up new regulations for the demolition to occur and for the new structures to occur. So you will, after the SPUD is in place and the rules of that SPUD are in effect, we will accept a new application for a certificate of approval and review it pursuant to those regulations.
Okay.
Which
bring it
still
back to
include
you.
most of the design guidelines.
Yeah, right.
So it still comes back to the committee.
Yeah. One of the things we made sure of in the SPUD is that it retains, adherence to, or it's still subject to all the applicable UD regulations.
Okay. Questions or comments, or would you like to speak to?
If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Our SPUD was really pretty much driven by height requirements, height restrictions of 35 feet, and this is 56 feet. So our SPUD was written to accommodate a recommended even number of 60 feet for the height, maximum height of buildings. But that's for us. I presume your support would allow other buildings to be built to that elevation.
So do you have any buffer? Is the next property residential?
This neighborhood business district, the one to the directly east of this building, we do have a residential adjacency on the parking lots. That's north and east of the building. It's quite distant, but it's a distance of, it's an R1 adjacency. We're a neighborhood business district to the east of this property.
But you have a tract 2 that's adjacent to an R2, right? I have the map if you want to.
Tract 2, R2, I don't have any.
Tract 2 is not currently under the UD regulations. It's currently just zoned R2.
Got it.
And that's why it's been separated out, so it's not subject to UD under the SPUD.
And track 2 is currently a parking lot.
It's proposed,
Anyway.
well,
it is parking lot. The buildings are gone. He bought the houses down the street, and they're gone. So I guess that's right. Is that true?
What?
The buildings are gone. Did you approve that stuff? Or are we outside the district?
No, we didn't approve it because it's outside the district.
Okay, there you go, outside the district. I was worried.
Questions from the panel?
Yeah, you have, like you said, there's R2 zoning adjacent to the north half of the block going east towards western. The south half of the block is, as per the zoning map that's in your staff report, it's zoned neighborhood business all the way back to military. So there are residential structures existing there today. However, I think these lots right here, if I'm not mistaken, are vacant right now.
Yeah, those are vacant, I'm pretty sure.
How about across the street, Michael? It says
Across the street,
residential and
yeah,
apartment.
this center is, the strip center is located across the street on the south side of 26th.
But then just a little bit further west or east.
Yeah, there's an apartment building on the south side of 26, but it's east of the easterly boundary of the Spud, so it's not directly across the street.
And it's a multi-unit, relatively new, within the last 5 to 7 years, I would say.
I just want to be careful with the 60-foot deal, because that's pretty tall for that. Is anything else along there that tall?
Cameron Building. Cameron Building, David Walters owns it between 28th and 29th. It's taller.
How tall is it?
I don't know.
It's 5 stories. It's
5 stories.
I got a picture of it in here or not. Thought I did. Well, it's not immediately adjacent, so I didn't put it in the slideshow, but up at, I think, it's the office building that's near the top of your zoning map between 28th and 29th on the left side or the west side of the street. It's a 5-story building. Off the top of my head, I don't know the height, but it would be probably close to 60.
Any other comments, questions?
I move to send a recommendation of approval to the Planning Department, Planning Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you very
much. Motion
much.
passes. Okay. Other business, there's a meeting schedule. What action do we need to take on this?
You need to adopt it, right? Yeah. And it's still the fourth Wednesday at the November date. As always, conflicts with Thanksgiving, so it's shown to be moved up a week.
Do I have a motion to adopt the 2017 calendar?
Second.
Do we have a first?
Yeah, motion to approve the calendar.
I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Communications.
We have 2 administrative approvals during the last month, one with respect to a trash enclosure on Northwest 23rd Street, the other being replacement of 4 windows on a house in the Paseo district.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from staff? Any comments from commission? All right, next meeting is September 21st. Thank you.